Let me hit the record. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 26th episode of Toaster Talk on the Toast Network. First of all, wishing all our viewers and our fanelists a happy Diwali. I know for folks who follow cricket, the India-Pakistan match probably brought in Diwali a lot earlier for folks in India. But for F1 fans, we are in Austin, Texas. The game's going to play out post midnight from an India time perspective. So not sure how many of you are going to stay awake, but we thought we'll do the pre-race show right now itself. Again, our favorite panelists are on. They're going to discuss about everything that's happened since Suzuka and what's in store for the weeks ahead for the F1 season. We have 4 more races left. So quick introductions. Welcome on board Vignesh and Naresh, our regular panelists on the show. And they're both going to share their perspectives of what's worked and what's not worked. Quick 30 seconds of, I would say, silence in respect to one of the biggest contributors to F1, specifically for Red Bull, the founder of Red Bull. We unfortunately lost him. Dietrich, I'm going to lose out on his surname. Anyone wants to fill me in? I don't want to screw up his surname. Mateschitz. Yeah, a strong proponent of the Red Bull racing. And there have been question marks about Red Bull with him not being around, like what would be the future roadmap. I know Porsche coming into play helps from that perspective. And that probably explains all the behind the scenes that's been happening. But respect to the man who means a lot to everyone at Red Bull. And obviously, this weekend, the Constructors' Championship could potentially land up in their laps after a long gap. And that would be retribution or respect to him for what he has done for the sport from a Red Bull perspective. Quick thoughts from either one of you, Vignesh, Naren.
I would leave it to Vignesh to answer.
Yeah, so I would thank you. First of all, I would like to say the founder of Red Bull was an opportunist man. He saw the opportunities because Red Bull as a whole is a drinks brand. What does it has to do with F1? That's the question which anyone asks. But what he did was a strategic investment, be it not in F1 also, be it any dangerous sports, and you have the presence of Red Bull there. He found that, okay, the Jaguar team was suffering, got in Red Bull. He found the Minardi team suffering, brought in Alpha Tauri. And that's how he has put his strategic investment. In fact, they say that, okay, based on his investment, Red Bull has got more publicity than what it would have got, even after spending more than what it spent on F1 for publicity and for gains. So in that way, yeah, he came in the sport for publicity, but then the way he revamped the sport, you know, the Sebastian Vettel era, and then you know the Max Verstappen era, and you're seeing it. It's not that, okay, he's just coming here for publicity. He's coming to show he's the best. That the Red Bull is the best. So that's what everyone loves about him. He was not involved in the F1 paddock as a whole because he had a lot of diversified business. But all what we can hear from the legends who have always met him is he's a calm, funny, and friendly guy who was always there for the well-being of the sport and of his teams.
I mean, irrespective of all of that, the bare fundamentals of F1 is money. He brought in money. That's the most important thing. And everything else revolves around that. But again, that brings us up back to last weekend, which was Suzuka. Japan came on the track after quite some time. Terrible wet weather conditions, safety concerns raised, trailer on the track. What are your comments on the track conditions from last race?
Yeah, I think all the technology advancements in place, what we are missing is coming. With heavy rains that was slashing around Suzuka and with practice around something like the trailer that is coming on the track with the crash happening is something that I would say it is both the negligence of the driver and the negligence of the stewards around F1. Given the fact that there has been a red flag already raised and people were racing around the track, is something that is negligence of the driver. On the top of that, we also had the negligence. But overall, the race was a little predictable than with what we see, and there has been a lot of confusions with Max being, am I the champion? Am I the champion? I'm not the champion. That was a lot of confusion, but yeah, it was a little predictable. Now with Suzuka ending, now it is more, now that the driver champion is more or less, it is finalized. It is now the second place. That is a very close battle with Leclerc, Perez, Hamilton, and Sainz and Russell, very very close together. With Russell and Sainz 200 points, Leclerc and Perez with being neck to neck.
Literally 1 point apart.
Yeah, so that is one thing that I'm excited to see for the last four races, and I believe that Red Bull has already won the construction champions, with probably will win the construction champions. So I'm excited to see how the second, third, and fourth place crop up the next 4-5 weeks.
Yep. I mean, if Red Bull wins today, as in gets first place between either of the drivers, they would win the championship, or they need both the drivers to be in the top 5. And if I remember right, it's 16 or 19 points
19
gap between 19 points between them
19
and Ferrari.
points. Yeah.
Regarding the Suzuka, right? One thing is that, okay, two things hit me apart. Bad weather in Suzuka, especially in Suzuka or Japan, be it Suzuka or Fiji, is not a new thing. We have faced cancellations. Sometimes we have also seen FP3 getting cancelled, the quali getting postponed to the next date because of a cyclone or a storm brewing nearby Japan. Is a normal thing. What was the concern was a tractor on the track. And that was mainly a big concern, considering that, okay, Jules Bianchi had lost his life in the same track in a similar event. So that brought concerns over and above the entire issue of, okay, whether it should have been allowed or not. But yeah, the safety concern was that. The second thing which I found awfully different about Suzuka was how confused the entire paddock was, considering how much points they got. First, they said it was 75% of the race, you'll get 75% points, and then they are like, you get full points. And that's why the confusion kicked in, and because of which I believe Max was also like, did I become a champion? Did I not? Did I not? And that's where he wasn't able to express that feeling of, yeah, I am a 2-time world champion. So I believe, yeah, these were the two offbeat things which I found in Suzuka this time. Otherwise, as Naren said, right, it was racing as usual.
Yeah, I think that was the most understated announcement of a world champion, right? It was like, hey, Max just come back. He just got a penalty, so you're world champion. Really low key from that perspective. Honda, it being the home ground for Honda, maybe that played out in terms of the rules, because we've seen FIA rules. One challenge has always been is the transparency of the application of rules for the audience to know. It always feels like it's haphazard. We are hoping behind the scenes they're following the rule book, and it's just that the communication is coming across as haphazard. But there's been a lot of drama with how FIA has been playing out the rules time and again. We saw that in Austin also today. Actually yesterday during qualifying, Max hit the track limits, but his lap was not deleted. But we've seen the same thing happen before. Perez lost it after the next qualifying, so he didn't even have a chance to get back. So it always seems a bit haphazard from that perspective, but I think that's a story for its own. So we're not going to get into FIA. We've been doing FIA bashing all through the year, so we'll let it be. But let's take a moment and take the fact that Max Verstappen is the world champion, second time in a row. I think this year he's obviously shown his detractors, irrespective of what has happened as a team and FIA rulings. There's a lot of question marks around that. But as a driver, he has been one with his machine. He has shown it in multiple races. I mean, even in Suzuka itself, in a rain-soaked race like that, I think he was this close to basically sort of lapping everyone and winning the race with just the sizable gap that he had. What are your thoughts, Naren and Vignesh, about Max Verstappen's season in 2022?
Probably I will start. I've been following Max after very closely after the 2021 World Champion, wanting to understand what kind of person he is on the racetrack. And in my perspective, I feel that Max is highly focused on winning the races, if not winning the championship. He wants to have more podiums, more podiums on stage, taking the cup, spraying of the champagne, and he's very very focused with even if there is some, like for example, during Singapore, during the last leg of qualifying, he bought up the stewards. His engineers told to abort his final lap, and he didn't take that pull. He was like, even though he knew that at least in the next 2-3 races he will become a champion, he didn't take that very lightly. He took that very seriously, and he started to abuse those engineers. Why is it happening to me? And things like that. So that shows how focused he is in winning races and winning championship. And probably in the next 2-3 seasons, we can still see some championships from him if there is no issues with the car in the next 2-3 years. If they perform the consistent pace they are doing right now, they all in this overall season, they were very very close to Mercedes with the strategies. Also, they didn't fumble up the strategies. They didn't having issues with the strategies. So yeah, I'm hoping that Max wins more championships. But I also would humbly request Max to keep his cool.
I mean, to be honest, I feel this version of Max this year was a lot more calmer, cooler version than what we saw last year. And that maturity is kicking in as a world champion, and it showed this year. I remember early in the season when Leclerc was flying through without any issues, there were places where Max initially showed his immaturity and Leclerc was looking like the cooler one. But after a few races, I saw his strategy change and he was like, okay, I don't need to be leading all the time. Sometimes you lose a little to win the battle finally. So great sense of maturity there. Vignesh, what are your thoughts about Max and the year that's been for him? Vignesh, you're on mute.
As said, right? Max Verstappen was not thinking this as a sprint. He was thinking this as a marathon. He didn't focus on a single race, but he was focusing on the long run. He was like, okay, I am ready to lose one race, but yeah, in the long run, if it is helping me, well and good. This first half of the season, it was not helping Max considering the DNFs which he had because of the engine problems, but then they came up back, ensured that okay, everything was set up. This was probably the most dominating Red Bull car after the 2011, when probably Sebastian Vettel won with 4 races to go, 2011 Suzuka. Now, speaking of that, I now start to see a pattern because the first time when Sebastian Vettel won was on the last race. Then the next time when he won was with 4 races remaining, which Max has also done. Which, if it goes, then the next year he should win with 0 races, and after that he should win with 3 races. Probably after that, probably who knows, Lando Norris might go to Mercedes, and Mercedes will then have another streak of 5 years. This is how I see statistic evolving. Yeah, it's too early to say, but yeah, the machinery which RB has provided is absolutely fantastic. Aided by Ferrari's fumbles up with drivers, the strategy, the pit stop, and everything. And Mercedes not bringing a top class world machinery to challenge the top 2 teams. It was a smooth sailing for Red Bull. And that's why you could see the calmness, because last year it was like too close to comfort. This year it was he had a lot of comfort. So he had that calm, he had the peace. And that's what was reflected in his entire season.
Got it. And that brings me to another point, right? So this comfort and that they had is also being attributed to the fact that they potentially overspent on their 2021 budget. by just a few millions. I mean, what's a few millions here and there in an F1 team? But the fact that they overspent, the controversy around, there's still no idea of what the penalty is. Potentially, the penalty might just be a slap on the wrist. Does that push? And all the other teams have already highlighted. I mean, if you're not going to give severe penalties for this, all of us are just going to break our spending limits. So what are your thoughts? Like, what, for each one of you, what do you think should be, assuming that Red Bull is found guilty of overspending, irrespective of how much amount that they overspent by? What do you think would be a fair judgment or ruling, considering that this happened for 2021?
I would like Vignesh to start. I have a point to put here. So I can take that from there.
Okay, so see, first of all, overspending is a serious issue considering all the 10 teams agree. Now, this is the coherent, cohesive nature where all the 10 teams have agreed, and yet you are overspending, right? That is a serious breach. How much ever it, even if it is a $1, it's a serious breach. As simple as that. But in my opinion, it should not affect the drivers because it was nowhere the drivers' fault. The drivers won it on their own merit. So what they could do is something similar to what they did with McLaren in 2007. Like they let the drivers have their points, but the the team's championship points of McLaren was wiped away with some penalties. That is what I see, and probably as a punishment, or see, this is a punishment for overspending. But in order to stop this, they can probably penalize them in the wind tunnel restrictions, time restrictions. This is the max they can do. They cannot touch the drivers. The only thing they can touch is the team.
Makes
But
sense.
considering how FIA has been, I 100% believe they'll have an internal settlement with RB, which will not be disclosed, and things will go spot-free. But yeah, other teams might then just object it, but yeah, it might just shovel down and just be shut down after a period of races.
All right. I think that sounds fair that the team gets penalized rather than the drivers because they directly are not at fault for it. But Naren, you had a point, so I'm really keen to hear what that is.
So with respect to an official statement by a lot of news available on the internet, we are still not clear on what exactly is the breach from Red Bull. Some say that it is catering expenses, some say it is something else, some say they have not breached. But overall, if you see, I'd like to add on to what Vignesh has said. Instead of the drivers had nothing to do. All they would like to contribute on the track, and sometimes off the track with respect to contributions to upgrading the car. Probably what they can add to what I add on to Vignesh is that every time when the car is set up with a new NGUK, NGUH, you have a limit, probably three. You can change three, after which you get a penalty. For the teams which has reached this procedure, cut down by one or two. So only one change, after which you'll get a penalty. Probably the other teams can get three changes, but for the team which has probably done breach the cost, you cut down the upgrade by one, which means that the next time when they want to do something, they will think, okay, should I spend extra 5 million this year so I can breach it next year, or should I wait and be within my spending limit? Something that they will actually make the team think.
Yeah, no, I think that makes perfect sense. And there needs to be some sort of penalty for decision making that they have to take, that there will be an impact on them overspending versus just a fine, which obviously does create an impact. But I mean, at the end of the day, it can be settled off the race, and the race scenario completely stays unchanged for the current year and the next year. And it becomes a money power thing because Ferrari can then just go like, okay, fine, I'm just going to go overboard and I'm happy to pay even if it's like a 500 million euro fine. Right. So it again would create an imbalance for all the teams is what I feel. But with the drivers' championship already settled, with the constructors' championship almost settled, like within this race or worst case next race, that should be very clear. Naren, you did mention that there is some excitement around who could be the second in the Drivers' Championship. Similarly, in the Constructors' Championship, we know the third, fourth place, there is still a tight battle going on, and they could potentially reach the second place also mathematically. What are both of you looking forward to for, one, the race in Austin, and for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I would like to probably take the charge here. I saw the grid position after all the penalties. We see that Sainz takes the pole, closely followed by Verstappen. Perez is ahead, Leclerc, which means that the chances of him gaining a lead on the championship this race will be a little high. But we should also not let the fact that Sainz is on pole, and if Ferrari does not fumble up with the strategies today, I'm hoping that Sainz gets his victory, and that will be a feather on the cap for his F1 career. But will it make a progress in the championship? Yes. If he wins, he will probably go up to 25 points. But on the other side, we also have Perez and Leclerc who will also probably take few points. So that is an exciting battle to look out. And I also want, off late, I see Sebastian Vettel's Instagram saying there is still one race to win. I'm hoping, even though he went out on Q2 this time, I hope that we at least get into points and try to gain this race and this. So I'm expecting these from this race, and yeah. Apart from that, it is quota, so there will be a lot of after race party. We'll probably have. Last time we had Shaquille O'Neal giving the trophy. I don't know who will be this time. Yeah, this is what I'm expecting.
A lot of interesting insights there. Vignesh, anything you wanted to add on to that?
Yeah. So one thing, Mercedes are in second place, so you can see a clear progress from the team's championship point of view. It might prove crucial if they are able to keep Perez or at least Leclerc at the day, so they will get those crucial points. Saying that, I am eagerly waiting for how Albon is performing, considering he is in top 10 today. So I want to see how this race stands for the good of the Williams per se. And of course, Vettel is in top 10, considering the penalties which others got. Vettel is starting from top 10, and he'll always be a legend. So we want to see him end his career in a high note. So the more points he gets in every race from now on, the better for the fans, because we are watching him since his early days. So we want him to go not at his lowest, but ending off the season at a. So that will.
No, I think Austin's going to be exciting that way, right? So you have Sainz in the first. Yes, Verstappen is right behind him, and we've seen this year Ferrari has an awesome Saturday, get the pole. Within the first two laps, it's game over. But that's usually been Leclerc who's been at pole. Today it's going to be, or tonight, tomorrow morning from an India perspective, it's going to be Sainz who's going to be at pole, and let's see how he can put his elbows out against Verstappen. Very important point that Vignesh brought up is we have a second row lockout with Mercedes, and it's been a while since we have seen that. And over the long run, they've actually been performing better. They've been doing terribly in the qualifying over the season, but over the long run, they have shown, the brilliance of the past. And Russell's been Mr. Dependable over the season, so it's not like he's not been doing that well. So Mercedes has chance to max out on a lot of points today. That said, between Perez and Leclerc, they're 9th and 12th. Right. So I'm sure both of them are going to see some battles between themselves through the race. Strategy is going to play a big role. Ferrari doesn't have much of it, but they have the pace. So let's see how that plays out. And I guess the other thing I'd be really interested about is how does Ricciardo do? Because just like we're talking about Vettel going to finish off on a high, and we know that end of season, it's end of Vettel in his F1 avatar in the way that we've seen him. Ricciardo is still a question mark. Will we see him? We would love to see him. Will he finish on a high before he leaves? Looking at the radio talk, doesn't feel like he's playing for the team anymore or the team's playing for him anymore. But what are your thoughts? And those are the last thoughts I want to take before we close out for today's session.
Yeah, I take charge on this, and I would say, see, Ricardo frankly has no positions as a driver in F1 for the next year. Considering that okay, Williams are now gone for Logan Sargent in confirmation, probably he gets super point. You are in that way. So I believe Williams have Albon and Logan Sargent locked in. The other teams have everyone locked in. Alpine and McLaren have their locked in. The fun fact is, Autosport had this rumor stating that okay, Ricardo was being offered a reserve driver position in Red Bull. Now, this is a rumor mill which is spreading across. I have seen it with 4 news outlets, 2 of German, 1 of Autosport, and 1 from France, which means that okay, there is something going on in the bed. And of course, Ricardo's main aim is a 2023 season, 24. That's what he said. Now, I don't have a 23 season, I'll aim for 24, which also puts him in the right time, considering Perez is an old enough guy for Ricardo to leave. And of course, RB is not going to make him win, considering their priority is Max. So if Perez wants to win, he'll have to shift teams, which means Ricardo will now be in a perfect spot. And now this becomes an interesting aspect as to okay, how Ricardo is going to fit into that reserve driver role, or will he wait till 24 for the market to open up and enter the grid again?
I mean, honestly, I would think for him, RB reserve driver for next year is actually a good place to be. Like you said, that opens up 2024 in RB as second driver. We get to see a few more shoeies. And honestly, to be sunsetting out of RB is a good place to be based on the current machine that they have. Love to see him on a few more podiums. I understand he would love to be the winner, but that's clearly a position that's locked out for RB for the next few years. But that does make racing a lot more exciting for all of us. Time flies, just like every other session that we have. Thanks a lot, Naren and Vignesh, for sharing your thoughts about the F1 season so far and what to look forward in the coming races. Once again, happy Diwali to all our viewers. Hope you're having a blast. And if you have any comments, thoughts, feel free to put it in the comment section. We, like every other YouTube podcaster, please share, like, subscribe, and let us know what you'd want to hear more from this group of panelists. And we are Fanelists, not highly paid panelists. So if you are interested in sharing your thoughts, do reach out to us. We would love to hear these different opinions about F1 from different fans from across India as we follow the race across the world and the drivers and all the exciting things that have been happening so far. With that, once again, thank you, Naren and Vignesh, for being on the show. Looking forward to an exciting race at Kota this weekend. And then we head over to Mexico in a week's time. And let's see what's hot and sultry over there.
Just to add on to one point, Vignesh was saying that there is a pattern between Vettel and Perez's win. I hope, Vettel and Max's win. I hope Max doesn't move to Ferrari and again move to Aston Martin. So this is a thought for the day that I would like everyone to ponder up. Thanks, everyone.
Well, if he continues racing and you wanted longevity of that, he might go down that path. You never know. But fingers crossed, let's see if the future repeats or rhymes.
Okay.
Thanks a lot, everyone. Bye-bye.